Well, great. Everybody, welcome back to our channel. I'm just so excited today to have a very special guest of mine. Well, all my guests are special. I mean, that's just the way I roll.
Yeah,
So today we have
I'm not any
Ray
more special.
Calderon. Huh?
I'm not any more special.
Today we have Ray Calderon. He's the owner of IXL Training. It's a sports performance company, and they work with they're based here in Marietta, California. And what they do, they work on speed, agility, strength, and conditioning for youth athletes. Any one of them. It doesn't matter what sport they play, whether they play baseball, football, basketball, soccer, makes no difference because everybody needs this type of training. Ray has about 16 years of experience. And his goal basically is really to help athletes reach their full potential with speed and agility, with movement, and I think that's just super important because when I look at sports today, it's so different than what it was when we were growing up. When we were growing up, we just went out and we played. We did whatever we did. We jumped, we ran. When we got tired, we left. Today, it's so different. It's so organized. Everybody's involved, right? Everybody's involved, and grandparents, parents, everybody wants to have a say so. So currently, Ray works with he trains at
Serious.
City SC, CDSC, which is an organization that have soccer teams basically in all areas of California. They're pretty big organization. He works with the elite athletes there, people, boys and girls that are either playing MLS Next, EAL, Girls GA, or DPL. He works combinedly with closely about 200 athletes across 20 teams. So I'm just really excited to have Ray here. Ray, man, it's great to have you here because there's a lot of questions that people have that they need answered. They need answered from somebody that has a lot of experience like you.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I think I'm gonna enjoy this because I've known you for quite a while. So it's good to get on the channel and be a part of it.
Well, the funny thing is, it's the way we met, right? I'm sure you remember that, right? I was on one of my regular morning runs. I usually don't run into people when I'm running. I see people around, but never run into people. So that one day, Ray just happened to be running in the same direction as me. We're both running in the same direction, and we caught up to each other, and we said hello, and then we kept on running, and then it just progressed it. And ever since then, we've developed a relationship that spurs in different areas. We've seen each other, and then Ray worked with us in a futsal program that we have for quite a few years. And I tell you what, man, it's pretty interesting how you meet people, and look how long it's been today, and then here we are talking on the channel. It's pretty
I
crazy.
know. Yeah, we knew each other. We met before we even were understanding that we were both kind of in the same youth performance or sports environment. So that was pretty cool. That was pretty fun, and I like that because I I, uh, I I enjoy running. And then when I saw you running, I had seen you a couple of times, and we actually I think crossed paths a couple of times going in opposite direction. And I was like, hey, that guy looks like he's a boxer. You were a boxer or something. But yeah, that one time, then we met up and we said a few words and went on our way. And next thing you know, we're working side by side over at the futsal club.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but
no,
one of the
that's
things
great.
I wanted to share with you, it made sense to me, and I wanted to share it on the channel. So you said things are a lot different for kids these days when it comes to sports. Definitely organized in these massive ways of
Yes.
programs and clubs and all these different organizations. But one of the things that's not that actually their kids don't have today that we had, and you touched on it a little bit. So when we grew up, we just played. We went outside and we played. So what we did is we developed coordination and athleticism organically. Okay, where there was no coaching, no training, we just went out and we played. We threw the ball and we hit it. We kicked the ball. We played soccer in the front yard. We would pick up boulders and see how far we can move them. So we did all these things that we developed athleticism and coordination and strength organically. And the kids today don't have that because they're indoors or more sedentary. So they don't have that organic development. And that's where guys like me and organizations like me come into play is we help get them up to speed with regards to those areas that they may not have experienced as kids like we did, by helping them with that, developing that coordination and a little bit of strength to be able to actually be more athletic on the field.
Yeah, well, man, I've never put that two and two together because my friends and I, we used to throw rocks at each other. So that's something, right? And
Dodging.
when you know it, and I started playing baseball a lot. And when you threw the rocks at somebody, nobody wants to get hit by a rock, so they get out of the way. So they figure out a way to do the footwork to get out of the way. So yeah, that's it is really important. And then we did different sports. We went from throwing the football, throwing the baseball, and then kicking the soccer ball, maybe all in one day without even thinking about it. It's just that we got tired of doing one thing and we went to do something else, which means we
Exactly.
were constantly developing different muscles, different footwork, and all that kind of stuff. But so it's very important. So Ray, let me ask you this: at what age do you think, or is there an age, we should start strength and conditioning for our young athletes? Because people have kids today. People have kids at 5 years old. They're doing something.
Yeah. So so there's an understanding or fear of youth doing any kind of resistance training. And I'm going to use the word resistance training as opposed to strength training, because the strength training, although basically the same thing. Strength
Mhm.
training is taking a load, something that's heavier or has more resistance, and training on that. And resistance, like a band, is not a weight, but it's actually resistance. So kids can start doing resistance training as early as 5 years of age, and some
Right.
say four. Um, so it just depends on the child and the circumstances and what they're trying to accomplish, what's important in that situation. So you can start that age. I don't personally. What a lot of us in the field is probably the foundation. The first thing that needs to happen is the athlete needs to be able to understand and accept direction. And typically, 5 year olds, in my experience, 5, 6, 7 year olds, they have a difficult time being able to understand and accept direction. So, when it comes to something as complicated as strength training or resistance training, it's more difficult because you've got to make sure the patterns and the movements are correct for their
Hmm.
safety, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But so for me, in my world, I will usually start at the age of 8.
Okay.
So for me, I'm pretty confident when I take a client on that they're capable of being able to first understand and be able to accept direction for us to be able to execute well. Um, I have taken 6 and 7 year olds, and I have actually told a parent in the past that an 8 year old wasn't ready yet because they
Right.
weren't capable of doing that foundation
Right.
to get us started. So it really, in my opinion, it depends on who it is and what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, for sure. And it's consistent with what I talk to people about, development, the huge part of development, it starts from 8 to 12. From 8 to 12 years old, it starts. They start to understand what you're telling them. They can take the instructions. They can kind of have a visual what you're trying to say. And that's where they develop. That's where we focus on that development for sure. Now, and I'm asking you this question not because we don't know. I think we already know, but I think there's a lot of people that don't know. Can this type of training prevent injuries, present and future?
Absolutely. So when it comes to, especially in sports, right? But in general, the human body is made to move, and it's going to be faced with challenges both in life in general and as well as in sport, even more so in sport. Those challenges are dynamic movements. They're unpredictable. They're sometimes loaded with heavier weights and heavier stresses.
Hmm.
So when you just simply think about if you're capable of being able to handle a load without injuring yourself, then you're capable of performing a certain task. And so sports unpredictable, especially sports. So every time you move in on a field, you don't know where the play is going to be. You don't know if you're going to go right, left, up, down, forward, or backwards. At what angles you're going to be having to move in that particular play at that instance. So it's all unpredictable. So you're putting your body in all these different areas of movement and handling different stresses and different loads, like inertia going into the ground, falling to the ground, kicking, hitting, throwing. All those things are different loads that are actually being applied to your body during that sport. And so, if you can strengthen the body so that it can handle those loads, that's what's going to prevent injuries. So, for example, if I go laterally to one side and I'm changing directions to the opposite direction, there's inertia, momentum that's putting force into the ground on one direction when I'm trying to go the opposite. If for instance, I'm going to the left, if my left leg cannot handle that load, then it collapses, possibly injures. I take a couple extra steps, and because of it, I can't make the play. So if I strength train in that movement pattern and strengthen that left leg to be able to handle more load going into that side to change directions, then naturally it's safer. It's going to prevent injury because I'll handle the load a little bit better, a little bit easier.
Right.
So if I practice in that area and I strengthen that area, it's going to help me prevent injuries for sure. And that goes all the way across everything. So if my core isn't strong enough, then my core will end up collapsing. Although my leg might be strong enough, but my core collapses, and that creates more inertia in that direction. Again, possibly putting into a situation where I could injure myself. So, yeah, definitely, strength is a key. I mean, if we look at it, even ourselves as adults, as we get older, and we are more susceptible to tripping and falling and lifting something up and hurting our back. But if we maintain strength training, we'll be able to handle those loads and avoid injuries, right? If we are
Yeah.
able to have strong enough legs to go upstairs, we'll prevent ourselves from collapsing, falling, and possibly injuring ourselves. So it's really the same concept. Strength helps your body handle different loads, different planes of movement and patterns. And when it's able to execute those, it prevents injuries.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you see older people, as you said, people who stop moving. There's people that literally stop moving, and they don't understand that if you stop moving, you lose a lot. Your muscles, the muscles you don't move, they get weaker and weaker and weaker. And then one day, you try to paint, you try to jump up or something, or reach high to a high space to do something, and all of a sudden, boom, something happens to your shoulder, to your arm, and yeah, it's the exact same thing. So that's the thing that a lot of parents need to understand as they go into sports, how important that is, right? Because the injuries, young kids, when they have injuries, they don't know how to explain it. It's very difficult for you to have a conversation with them a lot of times. There's certain injuries, they don't know. They feel it here, they feel it there, they're not sure what it is. But as they get more and more training and they get older, it's easier for them to figure that out. I mean, if when I go to the doctor and the doctor says, okay, what's the problem? I can point the problem out to him right away because I'm used to these things. I'm used to injuries. There's people that are not used to them, and that
Yeah.
happens. So,
Yeah, when you feel pain because you did something and you feel the pain in that area, you kind of know why. You can explain it. You understand it. You may even have experienced it before. But our youth athletes, they have rare instances where they experience the pain of an injury, right? They have fewer times that they've been injured and
mhm,
fewer life experiences and a lot less maturity to
right.
be able to recognize that. So it is difficult for them. They don't know, I got this pain. Where is it at? Oh, it's right over here in the knee, but what side? And then they have a difficult time explaining what the situation is. So you got to break it down for them definitely to help out.
For sure. Um, and this one, and I heard this before, like I'm sure you heard of the Ball brothers, those guys who were playing They play in the NBA, Alonzo Ball. The father trained them like crazy at a very young age. And now some of them had, I think there's two of them that had some very difficult injuries with knees and stuff. And critics are saying, hey, you know what? They overtrain. So there is such a thing as overtrain at a younger age if you're not careful, right? Doing too much. So that's one thing. And then what about lifting weights? When is it too early to lift weights?
Um, okay, so let me first, I want to address the overtraining issue. Okay. So I always tell you know, kids and my family, the key to life in general is balance. Okay. If you overdo something, you may end up having negative effects. If you overeat, right?
Right,
For example,
right,
it could have a negative effect. If you overwork, you put too much time at work, it could have a negative effect. Your body is like everything else. It's going to fatigue, and when it fatigues, it's not going to perform at the same level or handle the same loads, and therefore it could injure itself. So it doesn't change from, well, it might change a little bit as far as the capacity, but it's the same for a youth athlete as an adult, because we can overtrain in every position because we have a body, a
yeah,
skeletal system, a muscular system, a neural system that works together. That body has to be able to handle the forces and the stresses it's put on it. So as an adult, I can overtrain myself and injure myself. Well, no different from a youth athlete.
right,
He or she can overtrain themselves and hurt themselves over time and period. We get older and we get arthritis and different things that happen to our body, wear and tear after long periods of time of living, right? And so, yes, as a youth athlete, if you overtrain, you could end up experiencing more wear and tear on that body as you get older. But it really depends on the person, the athlete, how they take care of themselves, what their nutrition's like, how much sleep do they get. So there's a lot of factors that go into play. I don't know that you can put a pin on that one and say, yeah, they overtrained when it comes
right,
to these.
right. Well, yeah, it's very difficult. Yes.
But when it comes to the question I think you had asked me was about how young.
Yeah. What's is there an age for people that you can just give them the free reign of lifting weights? Now, and I understand lifting weights. When we say lifting weights, that's very broad, right? There's guys that go in the gym and they lift 5 pounds today, 10 pounds, next week, 20, and they go 30, 40, all the way up to 250. So that's kind of their thing. They want to keep lifting more and more and more. There's people like that. And there's obviously people that lift weights, kind of like myself. We do repetitions all the time. We don't necessarily keep going up on weight all the time, but we do the repetition and it keeps our body strong and toned. So a little different, right? But when typically when people are younger, their goal is to get stronger, build muscle, become stronger and built. So if they're not guided properly, that could be a huge problem.
Certainly. I mean, it definitely is because they haven't developed a lot of the movement patterns that we might have as we get older.
Right.
Their coordination is not at the same level as ours. So they're at more risk when it comes to lifting a heavy load, because the heavier the load, the more challenging it is. Then if it's more challenging and I can't handle it, I'm at risk at injury. So developing those motor patterns, that coordination, the proprioception, those are key patterns to kids, helping them when it comes to lifting weights. So like anything, anybody that's new, anything that's new to somebody, you start with the foundation of trying to make sure they can execute the movement patterns. Once they can, then you increase the load, and the challenges and the stresses. And as they manage that, you slowly progress. And you would do that with anybody.
Right.
Um,
Right.
Anybody that comes in that says, I want to strength train, you first need to make sure that they can move the body the way they need to move it. And then you load it. And as you load it, if you want more gains, you might stress it more. So with more weights, for example. When it
Hmm.
comes to youth athletes, it's the same thing too. So I have athletes that come to me and I will do an assessment. So if I do an assessment on this young man and this young man, two different, and one lacks strength to be able to handle loads, and the other one lacks speed but has the strength. Well, I'll put more emphasis on speed and agility and mechanics on this young athlete, same age, same team,
Right.
but this young athlete needs more strength to handle those loads. So I would actually focus a little bit more on the strength side of things. So it's all going to depend on the athlete, when they should and what they're trying to accomplish. I think one of the biggest challenges that I have as a trainer when I run into parents wanting to get strength training or give strength training to their kids is they have a tendency to want them to do the things that they've done. So I ask them, so are you doing any strength training right now? Oh yeah, I go to the gym with my dad. And so they're doing a lot of the things that their dad or their other uncle or whoever it is that's helping them with the strength training. And like for me, for example, I grew up in the era of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, everybody wanted to be big like Arnold back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Big muscles and big in size, physique. Well, back then they created when the demand was there, they created machines in the gyms that were safe for people that couldn't handle big loads like Arnold, like those heavy lifters. They had to be safer so that they didn't have any,
Yeah.
accidents, any
Yeah.
injuries. So to create them safer, they made machines that are stable. So they're stable, they're on the ground, and you go to move them and they don't move, but the cables move, right? So there's stability inside of those machines, but there's no instability. When it comes to sport, there's no stability in sport, unpredictable movements. When a defender comes to you and you're trying to push them off, they're not staying there like a barbell does. You can't move them equally with both arms. You'll
Hmm.
be pushing and they'll be moving right or left, and there's instability. So my ability to be able to handle that instability is important. But when it comes to a machine inside of a gym, that takes away the stability. So it's just, I don't want to say superficial, but it's muscle strength that's taken out the stability. So when I go to play, it doesn't transfer as well. So
No.
I'd rather put a single dumbbell inside of a young man's arm or a young girl's arm and make them push one at a time, where that's creating instability, and I have to learn to manage that more similar than being out on the field.
Yeah. Yeah.
Transfers a little bit better.
Yes.
And so that's where I think the challenge is when it comes to parents not understanding what's important and how it is. Strength training is important, but the way you do it and who manages it and what the assessments are and what the needs are equally, and in some cases even more important, to make sure you get a better performance, because that's the ultimate goal. Is what is this athlete going to need to perform better on the field? If you're a baseball, football, soccer player, swimmer, whatever it is, you're not looking at just getting stronger. You're looking at, how do I perform better, and how does strength training going to help me perform better? How does it
Right.
translate?
Right.
And so the important part is that professionals like myself and yourself are able to know and assess what the needs are, and then develop plans to be able to address those needs to create the performance gains that are going to transfer to the field.
No, yeah, it's absolutely very important for sure. Yeah, you can't just blanketly do it because every athlete is different. Everybody needs something different. There's people with more stamina than others. There's people with more speed than others. And a lot of times people make the mistake. They think speed is everything. That's what's going to get them to, to a high level. But
Yeah, speed kills.
yeah, speed kills. They talk about speed kills. And I tell them, I said, as you get older and you progress up the ladder, you're going to find people that are just as fast as you are. You're just in this little community that you're the fastest. I mean, if you're in Marietta, you're the fastest. If you go to LA, you may not be the fastest. If you go into like a whole country's, quote unquote track meet, you may not be the fastest because they got people coming from all over the country. So yeah, it has to be focused on the individual, what the individual needs are. And the
Yeah, I
assessment is
mean,
critical. The
yeah,
assessment is critical.
one
Um,
one simple thing to think about when it comes to speed is that um, speed and quickness are two different things.
yep.
You could be faster than me, but if I'm quicker than you, I'm probably going to win the ball more often because sport usually isn't, unless you're running track, it's not 100 meters.
Right.
Okay. It's
Right.
within 5 or 10 yards to get to that spot. So no matter how fast you are, if we're going 10 yards and I'm quicker than you on the start, I'll get ahead of you and win that ball. If the ball's 30 or 40 yards away, you might catch me now and win the ball. That's where speed comes into play. But when it comes to quickness, it could actually, you can be quicker than someone who's faster and still perform better. So that's an important aspect that people have to understand. You don't have to be the fastest person when you're going from one side to the other. If you can be quicker than them, then you can probably win the play as well.
Well, yeah. With soccer, well, probably with just about every sport you can think of, first step is critical.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Once you get that first step, you're done. Um, okay. Last question. Do you think that we should? Is there a difference in the training, or should there be a difference in the training between boys and girls?
It's a good question. There are a couple of one main one, but there's a couple of differences between boys and girls, and I'll explain it. Let me see if I can explain it this way. This is the way that I would approach it. So, as I told you before, there were two different athletes, same age. One needed more strength, one needed more speed and mechanics and so forth. So I would address them differently. That in the same way, you might do the same thing with girls and boys. They might have different needs based on where they're at in their
Correct.
athleticism.
Yep.
But the similar factors come into play with regards to assessing them and knowing what their needs are, and then performing or putting together a plan that's going to address their needs. So, for example, we live in the world of soccer. We know that in soccer, girls, their the knee injuries are off
Yep.
the chart, right?
Yes.
Well, the different part that's you can't escape, that's more common from boys to girls, is their hips are wider. And because their hips are wider, it creates more angle from their hip to their knee.
Right.
So basically, the angles of the femurs come down and in more than do in boys. And if you can imagine that, it creates a little bit more of an opportunity for a valgus position when it comes to planting and landing and squatting. And so with girls, I would put a little more emphasis on trying to help them understand and learn and develop the ability to have better external rotation from their femurs, which is working the glutes and hamstrings to manage that load so that it would perform, they would, when they actually went to a lateral step or make a cut, they would be able to handle that load a little bit better. That's the one main one that I focus in on a little bit more with regards to girls, but I do focus in on boys in that area too, because that happens to them as well.
Right.
But besides that, here's the reality. The reality is girls have a skeletal system, boys have a skeletal system. Girls have a muscular system, boys have a muscular system. Girls have a neural system and boys have a neural system. They all need to perform, if it's the same sport, the same tasks. So really everything's pretty lined up the same. So now
Hmm.
it's just a matter of what differences are from girls. Maturity may be a little sooner than boys, puberty a
Right.
little bit more sooner than
Right.
boys. But in general, you're gonna be able to help them perform better by assessing them and then providing what they need to perform better, whether it be speed, agility, strength, conditioning.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's a great answer. Yeah, because the assessment is the key. The assessment is the key. But Ray, unfortunately, when I look at and I don't know what happens in other sports like basketball, football, or track. with soccer, a lot of the people that are playing on teams, a lot of the kids, most of the kids that are playing on teams are not getting assessed. They're not getting assessed. They're just showing up and they're playing.
Yeah.
And it's like whatever you get, you get. But there's no assessment. And I think that's where City, with their program with you, makes a big difference. And I think I've told you before, I said, man, it's the only club around here that has somebody that's focused on strength and conditioning, which is key for the players. I mean, it's key for the players. It's what they need. You know, the coaches, they when you're coaching, there's so many things that you need to coach, and that is part of it. But it's not. It's probably like maybe 5 or 10% of your focus. Sometimes
Yeah.
not even that. So I
And,
think the players lose out on that.
and it's difficult. It's difficult for organizations and parents to have someone like me on the youth side of it because face it, you're trying to play the sport. You need to practice sport. You need to train at the sport. You need to play and you need to do all those things. So you're going to practices and games and tournaments and traveling and so forth. So that one thing that's out there that maybe you need, which is strength training or more specific speed and agility training, they can't get to it that often. It's more difficult. It's more expensive. There's more money involved in it, so forth. So, yeah, it is good, and I think every organization should have a strength and conditioning trainer that actually is helping their organization improve because it's going to benefit. Because now it's in the program. Now it's something that's going to be happening, and that's
Yeah,
what
yeah,
Thiis, actually the organization, they understand the value
yes,
of that, and therefore now it's incorporated into the program. So the parents don't actually have to go outside
right.
looking. It's incorporated, it's scheduled in the program, and therefore the kids are getting it automatically just for being a part of the organization. And if that were to happen throughout all clubs and organizations, well, obviously, it would benefit the kids a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. I call it too busy to get better. That's what I call it. People get way
Oh,
too busy to get better.
that's a good one. That's a really good one. I'm going to have to use that. I'm going to steal
Well,
that
Ray,
one.
thank you very much, man. It's a pleasure. Um, and we'll post a video. We'll post a video here pretty soon, and I'll send you links to it. But man, it's been great talking to you. They're great insights, and I hope a lot of parents who listen to this video will have a completely different perspective on strength and conditioning.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thank you for the time. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. All right, great.
Take care.
All right.